Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 17th of July, comes to you from London. And that the big news last week, of course, was that US inflation number better than expected, and that's pushed the dollar to new 15-month lows. So really significant there. We were already bearish on the medium-term chart, remembering this is my long-term, my medium-term, and my short-term view of the market, weekly, daily, and 60-minute. Above the cloud we're bullish, below the cloud we're bearish. It's really that simple. And the corresponding point and figure targets. So we do have this target to 96 on the short-term chart for the dollar, and an even bigger downside target, some 17% lower. So that's quite interesting. In fact, we ran our inflation survey on LinkedIn. We're due to report the results today. Interestingly, the market believes, 70% of the market believes, that US inflation is not yet under control. So any signs that the Fed will loosen, the market does not expect that. And it's just interesting to see that only 30% of the market believes inflation in the US is now under control. And of course, we've got the UK inflation number this week, and it will be very interesting to see that almost certainly not as under controlled as the market would like. Looking at the euro, we're seeing here we're stronger against that dollar. We've broken again to 15-month highs. We've got an upside target, a very big one, to 141.66. That, of course, is a very long-term target. These targets can take years to play out. The shorter-term target, though, 111 and one all the way to 114, and that was given at 109, and we're now at 112. Only a couple more cents to go. The euro against, the Japanese yen, the dollar against the yen hit that resistance at 145. Now back on cloud support, but we're bearish short term there for the dollar. Medium and long term, still the yen. It looks like a lower high over the very long term chart. Of course, we need the lower low to confirm that, which we've already seen on the dollar index and against the euro. Sterling holding that 130 level. That's looking pretty baked in now, and the currency chart for sterling, 142 is the target. A little bit of a shortage of short-term targets. That 130 target was given back at 115, and that's where we went. So you really cannot ignore these targets. Taking a look at Bitcoin, we're seeing here we're just holding that 30,000 level. Got to get through the weekly cloud yet. New upside targets activated to 46,000, 54 and 50,000 were already there. Multiple targets to the upside really does increase the likelihood that those targets will be met. So it's quite interesting. The Nasdaq looking strong after those inflation numbers last week. There's the weekly candle there. A strong week, probably the strongest we've seen for a little while. And upside potential still 15% higher on the long term, 4% higher on the medium term. And even on the short term, we've got 2, 3, 4% targets. So still looking pretty good for US tech. The S&P 500 index down very slightly. The Nasdaq index up very slightly. Markets look set to open flat in the US today, and looking at the FTSE future, really taking the cue from the US, down 0.4%. Still looking weak compared to those US markets, remembering that the FTSE was looking stronger when the US was looking weak earlier this year, but now it's come back again. Looking at the DAX, the cash and the future, both down around 1/3%, looking better than the FTSE, above the cloud on all three time frames. Taking a look at Japan, we're down very slightly there. In China, disappointing numbers out in China this morning, and that has had an impact on the market there, and we are just seeing that we are bearish still on that long term, below the cloud on the lagging line. The medium term is lower as well. The Aussie market down very slightly, but just holding above the cloud on all three time frames still. And we do have these upside targets in place, but mixed picture there for us. We need to make new highs to really be clear. We'll look at the energy mix in a minute. Just looking at some of the other charts, we've got wheat. That's up nearly 3%. The Russia-Ukraine embargo being the main news there, just putting us back above the cloud there on the medium-term daily chart, but we've still got work to do in the long term. Got an upside target of 16% there, though, on wheat, and we really can't ignore that on that short-term chart. Looking at gold, sitting at 1956, holding a little bit steadier. You would have expected gold to maybe fall away a little bit on that inflation number last week, but it really has held up pretty well. And silver has really been pushing higher, back to nudging that 25 level. Lots of talk in the market about inventory shortages on silver, but the reality is we've still got work to do there as well. Looking at US 10-year yields, we did fall back quite sharply on that inflation number last week. No big surprises there. The long-term and medium terms are still bullish though, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens next. But for the moment, we really are just below that 2022 low, and that will be significant. We break that level. There is quite strong resistance just above the 4% mark, and the targets were there, and that's where we went. We met that target. We pulled back. Just watch for any new targets. Taking a look now at the energy mix, we've got Brent crude, that's up 1.6%. Down 1.6%. Those Chinese numbers really starting to create some demand destruction fears. Looking at WTI, similarly there, we're seeing big moves this morning, quite a bit of volatility in the market, but we are back below the cloud. We actually called crude bearish today for clients. We were a little changed at the open this morning, but that's now come to pass. US Natgas, we were neutral in our morning call. We have got the medium term daily moving above the cloud. That's looking better. That's something that didn't happen on TTF. And here we are still below the cloud on the short term, just making the call difficult, and a mixture of targets. We do have 259. So that is where we're watching just on the short term, but on the very short term. But on the short term, we do have downside targets, so we've got to watch that. Coal just sitting right on that $100 level for API2, still below the cloud, so really significant there. And looking at emissions, we were actually bearish this morning. We have bounced on that 85 level, but we are below the cloud on both the daily and the 60-minute chart. Remembering that's my medium term and my short term, and we do have mixed targets now, but the 60-minute targets were quite compelling this morning, and so you just cannot ignore the fact that we have got targets breaking below that support level, so not looking great, and of course we are below the cloud. Now gas was an easier call, bearish on TTF. We're only a couple of dollars above the June low, and so really significant there. Watch your 1 minute targets. That's where it's going to play out. Of course, we didn't get above the cloud on gas prices, which just shows this recovery was not sufficient enough to take us into a new medium term uptrend. And of course the same is true of MBP. We're seeing here we've got downside targets there as well, but again a mixture kicking in this morning, so gas prices are a bit volatile. German power, Cal 24, is looking weak as well. That 130 levels the watch level now. If we fall below 130, then we're looking into the mid 120s, 125, 126. So and then there's 1 to 120. So we've got to keep an eye on those targets as well. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. Bye for now.